Hi, my name is Darin Drown, and I am a retired music educator. So now I am a full-time vocal coach, and I am here coaching the Alexandria Harmonizers. I grew up as a barbershopper, watching my dad's quartet sing shows and fell in love with it. And then I ended up singing in a quartet myself and directed 2 different choruses for over 27 years. Also being a high school music educator, I attended a lot of youth camps and got a lot of students, high school students, involved in barbershop, and now work for the Barbershop Harmony Society as a part-time employee. I think that every person needs to be seen. I think every student that I work with, it's important for me to build a relationship with that student. When that relationship is strong, the learning is deeper and the learners want to be there. And so that's always been a big part of the philosophy of how I coach too. I try to really get to know the people that I coach. I try to, as much as possible, even in a setting like this where there's 65 people, I try to learn about as many of them as I can and introduce myself to as many as I can. So that builds a collegial relationship for the teaching, which tends to create deeper learning. I probably started vocal coaching right about in the middle of my high school teaching career. I taught for 32 years, and because I was avid barbershopper in the Denver area, I started coaching both female quartets, mixed quartets, and men's quartets, as well as choruses around that area. And the more that I did it, the more people realized, oh, well, this guy's got an education background. So it helped me, I think, bridge that gap of being able to explain barbershop, but explain it as a teacher. Yeah, I think there's some similarities to coaching a quartet versus coaching a chorus. First of all, the technique is the same. Healthy singing is healthy singing, and that's what we're trying to get regardless of whether it's a quartet or a chorus. Obviously, there's an added level of difficulty because instead of having 1 lead in a quartet, all of a sudden you have 23 leads, and you've got to agree upon the philosophy of how am I going to approach this singing. And so it's an extra layer. And then you put the layer of those 23 leads with those 36 basses and those 36 basses with those 13 tenors. At the root of it, the philosophy is the same. You're still teaching healthy singing. Typically, when you're working with professional musicians, you don't have to go through as much detail of the basics. When you're working with amateur musicians, which the majority of my career has been, the technique has to be talked about. It has to be agreed upon. Otherwise, you start to kind of run into different bits of language. One person understands it this way, one person understands it that way, and then sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And so when you're establishing the language that which you want to teach with, it really helps to get everybody on the same page. Establishing that language of vocal pedagogy is really important. I happen to teach a style of music teaching called Estel voice language, and Estel talks a lot about the anatomy of singing, what's going on in your singing mechanism. And so we establish some vocabulary right off the bat as to what we are going to do with our tongue. What are we going to do with our lips? What are we going to do with our jaw? Concepts like that. And once that's established, then we can start to help people understand, how do I do this singing style in the most healthy way? Because of my background, I was aware of the Comedian Harmonists, and oddly enough, about 5 years ago, my YouTube feed actually sent me a link to one of the documentaries on the Comedian Harmonists. And so I was very aware of the group, but I knew that the story really hadn't been told, and I wasn't very aware of why. So when Joe came to me with the possibility of doing this set, I was really enthused. I was excited that we were finally going to tell this story of these performers that really were kind of critical to not only vocal harmony and the history of vocal harmony, but also really predecessors to the barbershop harmony style. So when we get to this point where we're about a month out from the contest, technique becomes a little less important and our precision becomes more important. we've got to make sure that entrances are together. We've got to make sure that the choreography works with how we're singing. We've got to make sure that the cutoffs together. We've got to make sure that people are singing freely produced sound so that we don't have individual voices sticking out. We've got to make sure that vowels are matched up. So right now it's more about precision than it is about just base language. And the technique has already been set up, and I've been here before to kind of develop some of that language. And so really now it's about, can we be precise with what we're doing? I think that the more familiar you become with the style of barbershop, the more that you start to focus on different parts as you listen to it. So after 32 years of teaching and also 45 years of being a barbershopper, I know what to listen for if I'm listening for the bass section. I know what to listen for if I'm listening for the baritone section. I think the tricky part is that once you start doing this a lot is that you start to hear the chord and know what's out of tune in the chord. And then you can kind of jump to that particular note or that particular part and focus on that. But a lot of that's just kind of time in the saddle with the style and really understanding the style. I am so excited about the progress that I'm seeing. When I was here about 8 months ago, we built a lot of foundational singing habits. When I walked in the room and heard the set for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, we are singing so much better. It's exciting to work on the detail sometimes as a vocal coach. Sometimes we're working totally just on building habits, building philosophy, but it really gets exciting, it really gets fun when we get into the details of the music, and that's where we are now. I think retreats are kind of a magical time for a chorus. And there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, you do get to start to polish. You get to start to put it all together. You get to see the whole package. We've been working on these bits and pieces, and all of a sudden it all starts to come together. So that's the first part of it. I think the second part that's really important is building the camaraderie, building the family that is the chorus. It's so important that exists at the highest levels, because if that doesn't exist, it comes across the stage. We can tell when people don't like each other in the audience. And when you're at a retreat, you get a chance to kind of break down some of those walls, learn what it's like to sing with another human being, learn something about them, their likes, their dislikes, and you truly start to become a family. I think that you will be so excited with what the Harmonizers are doing. This set is an incredible adventure that Joe came up with this concept to do this. I think it's a story that has to be told. I think it's a story that you will love how they're telling it, and you will come to appreciate not only the Comedian Harmonists, but you'll appreciate the Harmonizers at a new level that you never expected. I'm really enjoying working with this chorus. I'm really enjoying this set. You will too. I can't wait till it hits the stage in St. Louis, and I'll see you there.